if there's a reason for doing like a test run at some point to make sure everybody can connect or whatever. I did just start recording, and we are live.
Great.
Okay, great.
Thank
Is there
you.
anyone in the attendees?
No, the attendee
No.
list is
Not at
zero.
the moment,
Okay.
but I will monitor that, obviously.
Okay. Yeah, if Rich, Tracer, or Karen Sakaniwa come on in the attendees, please promote them.
Will do.
But we can, we have our quorum, so we're good. All right. Do we have Andy Egmont on though? No, we don't, do we?
She's not.
So, I would note, by the way, that the new building commissioner inspector roles have been filled. They're here, but they are digging right into their work. They really just started. So
Yeah.
I suspect that maybe your next meeting, that you'd have your liaison from that office at your meeting. I think you might want to check in with the mayor's office on the timeline. But they're here, so I think perhaps the next meeting would be the appropriate point if in fact that role will revert back to the building office as opposed to
Right.
the temporary role Andy had. So.
Yeah, I know that just went through. So I was going to actually reach out to the mayor's office next week or so, just to see for the next meeting if we'll have someone. And also, I want to find out when the next CAM training is for whoever's going to be the next ADA coordinator. I'd like them to attend it if it's coming up at all soon. I don't know. I haven't checked with MOD yet, but I'm going to be reaching out to her about it anyway. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything major that she needs to speak on anyway. So, Kristen, where are we at?
So we have approval of previous meeting minutes, and forgive me, I was not in attendance for March, and I got Brian's fabulous minutes. Thank you, Brian. So I have not been able to kind of retrofit those into our notated minutes. And I think maybe we should table the vote on the minutes just so that I can get everything a little better organized with all of that.
I motion we move to table the minutes till next month.
Second.
Okay.
So do we take a roll call vote on that then?
Yes, we
Jenny?
have to do roll call. Yes, Kristen?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
And Sean?
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Thank
Motion
you.
passes. Okay.
So we have hearing from other members and public comment.
Which we don't really have any public comment, but I know, Kristen, there was an item that I didn't get on the agenda that I thought you might want to speak to, because I did get your CC'd letter with the school and with the safety issues around North Atkinson and the Bresnahan and the traffic and all of that.
Sure. Do you want me to go into that briefly now?
Sure.
So I reached out to the parking enforcement and to some city councilors and to the principals of the Bresnahan school because of the returning back to 5-day in-person school has brought an influx of vehicles for the drop-off and the pickup. And the first few days of the pickup after school time, they call it the queue, the rider line. The cars were all the way down North Atkinson and spilled out onto High Street, almost to the senior center driveway entrance.
Oh, wow.
So it was, and attempting to exit North Atkinson and turn on or off, left or right off onto High Street was so dangerous because you couldn't see around the cars that were lined up on the side of the road. So they've since reached out. The parking enforcement is actually on site now every morning and every afternoon, although I don't think the mornings are as much of an issue because the cars aren't all there at exactly the same time in the mornings.
Right.
But what the parking enforcement officers are doing are actually walking up and down the rider queue and instructing the drivers to literally pull, with just inches between each bumper. And that's taking basically, they did a study and they took basically 10 cars off of the North Atkinson queue and pulled them into the driveway. So that takes the queue off of High Street. It keeps it just tucked enough onto North Atkinson that it
Gotcha.
eliminates quite a bit of that danger. So they were
Well, that's
very
good.
responsive. The parking enforcement officers have met with some defiance and some parents who are expressing concerns about being too close to that other car in front or having another car too close behind them. But for the most part, I think that's rare. The word is getting out there and the principals are doing a great job kind of sharing that info. So that is
Great.
just, I think there are fewer children riding the bus, and that's
Agreed.
what has
Yeah.
changed for the number of cars.
Yeah, I think there's probably about half the amount of kids riding the bus that were normally riding the bus.
Yeah, they counted, I guess they've counted the queue quite a few times, and the actual numbers of cars isn't significantly different over previous rider years, but for some reason it's just more of a buildup and an overflow.
Right.
Um,
Okay. Well, I'm
so
glad
they
that
are
got
addressing it.
I'm glad that got acted on swiftly, because that was a pretty dangerous situation. So I'm glad they're
Yeah.
trying to do something about it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they are on site, and I believe that that will pretty much be the same for the rest of the year, it seems, unless
Good.
all of a sudden the bus ridership kind of increases for the last 10 weeks of school or what have you.
Right. Okay. Great. All right, then we can probably then jump to the agenda.
So we have ADA coordinator update. We'll table that because Andy's not present. MOD webinar regarding outdoor seating, April 14th, and city parklet program.
Yes. So because I know, Lisa, you're already signed up, correct?
I am.
Great. I just wanted to keep it on the agenda because it's coming up this month. And if anybody else wanted to attend, just go on the MOD website and look for their event, their webinar, their quarterly webinar. It's going to be pretty relevant, knowledge, because it's all about outdoor seating. And I'm trying to get a counselor or two to sign on to that meeting as well, so that they can be aware. But I want to make sure that we get good due diligent notes from this meeting. Lisa, will you take really good notes from this meeting?
I will try. I don't type much anymore.
Okay.
I do talk to text because of my left arm. So
Okay.
it could be a little hard.
Jenny, what time is that meeting on the 14th? I can look it up.
I want to say it might be like 11 or 12.
Okay.
It's earlier in the day.
Okay. I likely have a conflict, so unfortunately will not. But I'll double check the time to see. If I can attend, I'll definitely take notes.
Okay. Because I'm
I would
signed up.
also guess that they might record it and circulate the recording after the fact, so I could always
that's
go
a good
back
idea.
in and capture notes
Oh, that's a good
afterwards.
call. I'll try to find out if they're going to be providing that, a recording after the fact. It is something that you have to register for. So if you think you might be able to go, you're going to want to register.
I'll double check that. Sure.
Yeah. So I think I registered, and I sent the email to Counselor Devlin, and he was going to try, but I think he also sent the email to Counselor Tontar, who might try to go. I'm just hoping that they will, because they're on the committee that's dealing with the parklets. And I just really wanted to have somebody else in the city listening in on that particular webinar. It's just going to be so relevant, and it'd
Jenny,
be nice
what
if
is a
there was...
parklet? Sorry for an ignorant question.
That's okay. So a parklet is a outdoor dining space placed in lieu of a parking space. So the on-street parking space outside of a restaurant gets transformed into a 1 or 2 table dining area. There's a platform that they're installing. so that it meets flush with the curb. And then that's their little dining area for their on-street dining. And they're called parklets.
Okay.
Like,
So the
I'm not
platforms
sure
are
why.
accessible
Yeah.
because they are flush with the curbs, the
Correct.
curbing? Okay.
I haven't been down there to see any of the ones they've put in yet. I've seen pictures. I don't know if there's any gaps or more than a 2-inch rise on anything. I haven't been able to check with that. And I suppose that's something we'll just,
Are there
Andy-
some in already, Jenny?
I believe there are, yes.
You know which restaurants?
I know there's one out front, the Port Tavern,
Okay.
and I'm not sure where else. I've just seen pictures like loosely, like not with a caption of where they are.
Do they get removed on a daily basis, or is that a permanent
I don't-
structure?
I don't,
The parklets are seasonal.
Seasonal,
Yeah,
okay.
the assumption I think is that, because it's stimulated because of the pandemic and
Right.
federal funds are coming down to help with the various different things. The parkouts are basically a way to help the restaurants to have outdoor seating and spacing they need. So
But they don't have to pack them up at 11 o'clock at night and put them away.
no, that would not be
Gotcha.
realistic. Obviously, that would not be
Right.
realistic for them.
Right.
And so
Okay.
that's the whole goal, is to kind of do it as a seasonal thing. They'd obviously wrap it up at the end of the year. It wouldn't make sense to leave
Nice.
it plowing in the winter, but I'm sure there'll be some dialogue in the future, given what the pandemic has stimulated, about whether some of those spaces become more permanent parklets as opposed to only during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I love the idea. The fact that they're flush with the sidewalk is wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
great thing in a lot of places, and I think it'd be a good one here as well.
yeah.
Related
So-
to that, Jenny, I attended, I don't remember which meeting it was. Parks Commission, maybe? Yes, Parks Commission. I attended a Parks Commission meeting in early March, mostly regarding the MAL, but
Mhm.
they did discuss Brown Square also because of the outdoor seating at Mission Oak, and basically how
Okay.
Brown Square, which was a grassy area, is mud, is complete dirt. And
Right.
so they were addressing some ideas and some brainstorms about that. So that sounds like maybe it would kind of tie into that sort of same theme. They were discussing whether it should be mulched, and of course I put my hand up and went like, no mulch, like mulch is not
Right.
accessible. And then they
Yep.
were talking about, solid surface, crushed granite and that sort of thing. So it sounds like
Right.
maybe along those same lines. So it's
Well,
great.
that'll be interesting to follow too. Yeah, we should
Yeah,
definitely keep an eye on that.
Crushed granite, I don't, gravel does not work for
They
me.
seem to be, it's not gravel. It has a special word, Lisa, and I'm sorry, I can't remember what it's called.
Is it like pea stone or pap?
No, it has a funny word. Deconstructed granite, maybe. But they seem to be very big fans of it. It's also the surface that is currently on part of the walking paths around the Mall. So it's that sort of hard, solid, gravelly path. It's not gravel that you would get stuck in. It's but it's still not best case scenario, I think, but I think they were just exploring a whole bunch of other options.
Okay.
I think
there
it's
was-
better than gravel.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be
Yeah.
like pea stone or soft surface. Nothing that can shift.
Well, that's good.
That's good.
So, yeah, I
Okay.
think that sounds interesting.
Okay.
So if nothing more with outdoor seating, the mailbox on Green Street
Yep.
update.
So that has been replaced. They put it back.
I used it the first day. It was very
there was
exciting.
no notice. We didn't have any idea they were going to put it back. We didn't get any kind of reply to the letter. But, I'd spoken with Counselor Connell, and he was going to reach out to Seth Moulton's office to follow up. But then the very next day, the mailbox was back. So I think that the letter just was enough to the postmaster, and he responded in kind.
Right.
And so Barry did put together a nice, well-written thank you letter to the postmaster. And I believe they sent it to him, but also sent a copy to the Daily News. And there was a really nice article that Dave Rogers had on the front page yesterday in the Daily News about us thanking, the two committees thanking the postmaster. So that all worked out really well. People are absolutely thrilled that it's back. It was all over Facebook yesterday with, people just commenting, all day long about how glad they were it was back. So
Way more than a handicapped issue. People just really like being able to drive up and drop off their mail.
Right.
yes.
It is. It's definitely a useful amenity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we were able to have a nice collaboration with the city council on this, and it got taken care of nice and swift, and that access has been restored. So that is good.
Yes, agreed. So we have website updates and the handicap parking space next to the Joppa boat ramp. Those are the last two items. And I have some other
Okay.
parking updates.
Okay.
So whichever you'd like to do first.
Sure. So the website, obviously, this has been an ongoing thing. But I mean, I'm just a, broken record on it. We just need to compile some information and send it to Matt Coogan to put it on the website. But we don't have a full commission to even discuss help with it. So
Subcommittee. I'm wondering if maybe we could consider like a subcommittee and be able to Zoom with Matt and just kind of go through changes live rather than typing things up and sending them over and whatnot. I'll send him an email and inquire about that as a possibility. And
okay.
if that's not an option, then we can come up with another plan. I think most of the information we have captured in our minutes and we have captured in other reports that we've created over the last couple of years, but
Yeah.
just a matter of getting it on there. I think the last time I checked and I had sent him an email and didn't hear back, the website had some members who are no longer members, and I don't think there were members that have been added yet. So I'm not sure
Okay.
if those changes were made.
Okay. Well, we'll follow up with him, and I think that might be a good idea.
Since everything is on Zoom, might make it
Yeah.
a little bit easier.
Yeah. So okay, you can check in with him with that. And then the boat ramp, I spoke with Counselor Zeed to make sure that he was aware of the situation, and he is, and he's been in communication with John Morris, who is the homeowner there. And the sign was put back, and they plan on putting the cross hatching back soon. And I did express my concern to Counselor Z that I don't want this to get away from us with time, that it needs to be done, before that spot is abused anymore. And he agreed, and he's going to follow up and keep me posted on what's happening with that location.
Jenny, I saw from the notes from last month, is that an easement that is like how I know?
I think it might be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's city property, but that homeowner owns that particular area, or no, he doesn't own the parking space. He owns inside of the parking space. So he had to, in order to pave his driveway, had to take the lines out. Is that what the issue was?
I believe it was something to that effect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So it's on the radar, and the season is almost upon us for painting, right, Andy?
They're in the midst of it. Yep.
yeah, so should be happening soon. I'd like to think. So yeah, I guess then that is all of the agenda.
So, as far as some follow up to old business, I was
Mhm.
able to speak with Richard Jones and get some information from him about some of our ongoing handicap parking violation questions. He, of course, is perfectly, he has all the information and he's willing to help us gather whatever it is that we need. One of my, I basically had 5 questions for him. The first being sort of the variation of violation amounts. I think we had talked about that a couple meetings ago, that some of them
Yes.
are 100, some of them are 50, some of them are 20, some of them are 105. He indicated that if it's over $100, then it's a late fee that is slapped on there. And some of those look like $5 or $15. So it must be the longer they go, the higher the late fee. If they were under $100, it's an abatement, either a full or partial abatement. That would be, somebody forgetting to put their placard up or some other reason that it's decided on a case by case basis what the
Okay.
fees can be reduced to. My next question for him was about second offenses, and sadly, the ticket writing machine, the system that they use, does not track based on like the license
Oh,
plate. So unless the officer, whether it's a parking enforcement officer or a police officer, unless they happen to remember that that vehicle is a repeat violator, it's not stored in the ticket writer as like a boing, you're a second offense or you're a third offense.
right.
However, if someone were to appeal a ticket, upon an appeal, no matter what, that goes to a hearing, and parking clerk Jones and the parking department looks up the history automatically. So they would know in an appeal situation whether it were a second offense. And in that case, it would never be waived as a second offense. But
But I
that
wonder,
sounds like it's kind of a rare situation.
I also wonder if they find out it was a second offense, do they then raise the fine
He
after
did
it's already
mention
been
that he
written?
does not recall that ever happening. So
Right.
that the fine has
So,
not changed. So that's kind of
okay.
a thing that I made a note for myself to kind of get some other data from some other municipalities to see how
Mm-hmm.
they're handling this, and from the state, because the state must have some, feedback for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, I did ask about unpaid tickets because the report that I get is the paid violations. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
how many tickets are actually written and just stay in unpaid land for forever? And he said it's not possible because the person would not be allowed to renew their license or renew their registration
Okay.
out of state license plate without state reciprocity. New Hampshire and Massachusetts have reciprocity, other states do not. So that would be the ones that sort of fall through the cracks.
Okay.
So he said they're all paid eventually, which I guess is good. I did ask about changing our reporting filters because right now the data that we get is the ticket violation number, the date that it was paid, that it is a handicap parking violation, and the amount. That's the only data that we get. And I explained that we would like to find out when the ticket was issued, not necessarily when it was paid, and that we would be interested in knowing the location of the violation just to track that data as the more problematic
Mm-hmm.
violation spots. And he agreed that that sounds like good information to know. He wasn't sure about how to change the reporting, but he said that he would look into it. And I also sent an email to the person who sends me the reports, the quarterly
Okay.
reports. So we'll have some more information about that. And then the
Great.
last thing that I spoke to him about was the pilot program, the monitoring stick, the handicap parking monitoring stick that was to have been installed at the library corner
Right.
before COVID. This was all
Right.
before COVID. Apparently the issue was that the city electrician was not able to run power to that location, so that monitoring stick was not installed. And
Oh,
then COVID happened and all of that, and now the person in the company that is offering these pilot programs has solar powered. So now it can be installed wherever it wants to be. And that actually, they're going to install it in front of the post office,
oh,
thinking that
great.
that is another more frequent violation. And it's also somewhat visible to City Hall to keep an eye on it. Now, he also mentioned that it's actually a stick. It's installed on the sidewalk. It's about 3 to 4 feet tall. And my first question was, don't you think someone's gonna like knock it over with a baseball bat or spray some black spray paint on it or something? And he was kind of like, well, I hope not. But that's on
Right.
the company who owns them, I guess, not on the city. Um, so it is a camera. It does record video. I don't know how much video. We don't know what kind of data will come from it, but it will be interesting to see. And then I guess from the pilot program, they'll decide if that's something that will be installed in other places.
Okay, great.
So I think once we can kind of firm up the reporting, what we can do is, I know Sean had mentioned maybe being able to work with me and subcommittee on sort of compiling some data and figuring out all the data that we have. Um, and then we can go forward with, making a sort of formal report of what our trouble spots are and the trends that we've seen over the past few years and the violations and the ticket amounts and that sort of thing.
I think that would be great because I think then once we have that, I really strongly feel we should pursue raising the fine,
Sure.
especially finding out now that the second offense fine is moot
It's
because
rarely,
they,
it seems like it's rarely issued.
yeah. So I think that, we did this long enough ago that it is, we've seen that it's not enough. Um, it's people are still abusing just as much as they were. I'd like to look at that, the report and look at the numbers each year. Has there been any kind of steady decline or has it been pretty level? That's what we need to look at and basically have that data to show that there is still need to be working on this issue, and raising the fine was the next natural step. Um, you know, at this point several years later. So
Right.
um,
I agree.
I
Good.
think that's just what we will now keep on the agenda and work on that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the council is, they're taking on a lot more stuff again, and they're gonna hopefully start meeting in person soon. I don't know how soon, but I know they're talking about it. They want to get back in person. Um, I know the school committee is starting to meet in person. They can't do it at City Hall, but I think it's we're at a good time for it. It's perfectly fine timing at this point.
Right. Um, I had two other thoughts that would be basic new business. Jenny, you mentioned the MOD, and it appears that the community access coordinators are understaffed. So Jeff Dugan is the sole responder at this time from the MOD.
Right.
So his response time is somewhat delayed because he's working through a backlog of contacts and he's responding in order of people's attention.
Hmm.
But through my work, I have stumbled upon a group called CODA, CODA,
Okay.
and it's the Commission on Disability, and I'm not sure what the A is. It was under debate if it was association or affiliation, or it's an organization of state commissions on disabilities in Massachusetts. So
Huh.
of course my ears perked up and I was like, I don't know about this. Do we know about this? I've never heard about this. And
Yeah.
their web information is somewhat outdated. So I'm going to follow up and see if we can get some more contacts for that, because I think that would be a really useful connection to make, especially when it comes to
Absolutely.
things like parking and outdoor seating and the
Mm-hmm.
things that sort of come through our agendas somewhat
Yeah,
regularly.
definitely. Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard of that either.
Right.
So, okay.
So I will
Great.
report back next month what I can
Okay.
uncover. And Rich, hi Rich. We did
Hi,
see
Rich.
Rich join us. I didn't know if, I hope we can hear Rich. I'm not sure he's currently muted.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, yay.
Yay.
I didn't see anything about the vaccine efforts in the last round of notes, but I may have overlooked it. But I just wanted to make sure that you didn't have any updates or anything from a couple meetings ago.
Well, as I learned, there was a concern among people, and the Department of Health, which is represented by their secretary, apparently did not could not respond to any of the questions nor provide any answers. Since that time, however, as we all know, the vaccine rollout has. So I think that problem is in the process of being remedied. So
Right.
the meeting itself was it represented a lot of people. There wasn't anybody who was content with the situation at that time. But I just want to segue to another thought that I had about parking. You know, the parking is not rocket science. Parking tickets, I mean, if there's anything the police department is good at, it's parking tickets. There's no problem with that. They can pull a parking ticket on just about anybody. So, you know, I think despite the fact that you're going to put a lot of time into this, I think there are issues that go beyond assembling a lot of data. And they involve a culture, a mentality in the police department. And I think that's what needs to be addressed. As I said, this is not rocket science.
So to respond to that, just from my past couple of years interacting with Marshall Murray and with the parking enforcement, it appears that the majority of the parking tickets are not written by police officers. The majority of parking tickets are written by parking enforcement, which is a division of the parking clerk's office from City Hall. Police officers are certainly entitled to write parking tickets, and they will, and they can, and they do, but that's not the majority of them. I think, because I asked about that today, actually, I didn't mention that. Thank you for reminding me. I didn't have it in my notes. Because it used to be that the police had one system and the parking enforcement office had another, and the reporting didn't merge. That has now changed. They have the handheld devices. The parking enforcement uses the handheld devices that print the tickets. The police officers also have those devices, but they can also choose to use the paper carbon tickets and physically write a ticket. And if that happens, it still gets merged into the same system. It just has to be manually entered. And Parking Clerk Jones did mention that that is still a thing. But I think the majority of, at least here in Newburyport, most of the handicap parking violation tickets are written from parking enforcement, not from the police department.
Right. Well, I understand. I understand that's the case, but still, if I were to park downtown and let's say forget to use the, I would bet on a busy Saturday that within 10 or 15 minutes, I'd probably have a ticket. There'd be no problem with that. I mean, they're very astute, and because that's their job.
Right.
That same, you know, we need to be consistent. And as I said, I think it's an issue with how to address it. It's an issue within the culture of the department, the city, the mayor. I don't know. But I think it goes on assembling the data. I think the data speak for itself. Intuitively, I think we all know what we'll find. And
Yes.
so,
So
I think
just to clarify, Rich, for you, why we want to have this report is that for the city council's purposes, for all intents and purposes, they're going to want to see data related to our request. And so that's all it's for. And it's just to show that, you know, there is a need. And I think that if we can raise the fine to the state maximum recommended, it's going to scare people a little bit more out of parking in those spots, more than it does now.
if it's enforced.
If it's enforced, right. And
I think it
you know,
is.
I think it is enforced, but I think if the fine is a higher amount, you know, we're not going to get people doing it again. They're going to get a $300 fine and realize Newburyport's not the place to try to park in a handicap spot for 5 minutes, you know, because they're going to get nabbed.
I certainly agree with, but you know, I'm afraid that as we've seen with past episodes of, you know, second violations, they've been dismissed. The clerk seems to look the other way for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason is. You?
Well,
I don't
think
think he looks the other way. I don't think that he has changed a fee as it's written, the way it had been written.
I may misunderstood. I may have misunderstood.
Yeah. No, he, you know, the abatements that he did mention specifically were a lot of people with some cognitive issues that were forgetting to put their placard, not displaying their placard, and that sort of thing.
my biggest concern is that there's been no second offenses written because they can't actually track them. You know, that's a concern to me for sure.
Right.
So I think that, you know, we were appeased by having that, oh, well, with the second offense, it'll be a higher amount. And so we can have that on the sign, but that higher amount's not hitting anyone's wallet, and it's not, you know, because it's not happening. No one's being scared out of parking when it's, you know, the minimum fine amount. So I think it's time, you know, I do think it's time. And I'd like to also figure out how we can raise the issue of the fact that there's never been a violation written for a fraudulent use of a placard. That's never happened in the city. And that's a huge concern, because that's as if to say that the police can't manage to track one fraudulent placard abuser, like, in all this time. No, they just don't try. They don't even look. They don't even attempt it. There needs to be some kind of conversation, but I fear that, you know, it just it doesn't it just doesn't seem to sink in with the police as much, the placard stuff, because they don't like to even have to deal with them, because it's additional, you know.
I did speak to Parking Clerk Jones a little bit about not necessarily about the fraudulent use of placards, but about how the state has changed the expiration date to be on the front and the back. And he had some concerns with people being able to cover their faces. I agreed that, you know, covering the face is a privacy issue. My children are young and they have placards, and I don't necessarily want Joe Schmo walking by to see a picture of my, you know, 6-year-old on her placard. But I also mentioned that parking enforcement, certainly police officers, but parking enforcement officers are also allowed to ask you to remove that protective sleeve. I do understand that that puts the enforcement officers in a confrontational position, because now they're asking someone to remove that privacy sleeve. And if someone's getting mad or confrontational about it, that puts them, certainly I think that the parking enforcement officers, they're not armed, they're not police. They
No.
That puts them in an awkward position. A police officer is a different situation. So
I just want to figure out what we can do to get the police to actually recognize that this is a, you know, an epidemic with abuse, and that they're not doing anything to stop any of it. And they're the only ones that have the power to do it, really.
And I think point, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something that if we could all brainstorm on that, how we could get through to Marshall Murray about this. I just don't know. I don't get good reception from him. So it's been,
I can reach out to him again. It's been a couple of years since he and I
Yeah.
have spoken about this. I know they did have some continuing education sort of coursework for officers where they had, a presenter or a topic about placard fraud or handicap parking fraud and that sort of thing. But I
right.
can reach out to him for update.
I mean, I'm
an
curious,
update.
is he aware that they now print the expiration date on both sides, because
Would think so, but
you would think so, but you would also think that they would know that there was a PL number at the top of the card, but they didn't know about that when I first talked to them 6 years ago. So, I'm not assuming anything. So,
Right. Okay.
I mean, I definitely think it's important to maybe bring them up to speed. Maybe you can take that approach.
Right.
And that it's that they're doing this in an effort to make it easier for police to catch people that are abusing their placards. Because if it's turned around now, it's an older placard and it's
Right.
probably expired.
Expired, yes.
They've been doing this for almost a year now. So
I think it would be nice if we can make those connections with other commissions to see how their enforcement officers are handling this and see what sort of data they're collecting and what sort
Right.
of fraudulent use citations they are able to issue. And
Right.
then approach Marshall Murray and just say, here's some information that we found. How can we help you?
Okay.
How
Yeah.
can we help you help us? And
Well, I think the
that.
nearest commissions for us is going to be like Haverhill.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to
Salem.
be nearest. I think it can be anywhere. I mean, it can be any of the commissions if there's this sort of consortium of commissions that we somehow have never known about.
Right.
We can try to find that out.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. All right. Well, I think that we've covered everything pretty well. Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up? We've got about 10 minutes.
I have just an observation and a question. This is Sean. Been just driving by the Superior Courthouse in this parking out front. Well, that people park there. And I'm just concerned about, I don't see any handicap parking spots out there. But where do people who have a handicap, where do they park when they have to go to the Superior Court?
That's a good question. And if they have to go to Superior Court, I am unaware as if there's an elevator in there. It's a very old building with a grand staircase.
Yeah.
There is.
There is.
I'll tell you my experience as I was called for jury duty and I asked to be put into Newburyport. And I went and I was in the jury pool room after I'd done all my getting into the building, which was not easy. And the bailiff came over and took me aside and he said, "Do you really want to serve?" And I said, "Not really." He said, "All right, I'm going to write you, excuse you." And he excused me. But the only handicapped entrance is on the side of the building and it's not monitored. So you have to go around the front and say, "Can somebody let me in the side?"
Oh,
because it's locked.
Yeah.
I see.
It is accessible. It's just not conveniently accessible. And there is an elevator. But he said that the restrooms and so forth are really pretty bad from an accessibility standpoint. So he
Right.
excused me.
Huh. That's interesting. Well, the courthouse. I don't know. It's a pretty old
It's
building.
the oldest operating courthouse in the United States.
Maybe we
Wow.
should leave
It
that one
is.
alone.
It is. I mean, now it's a different story if I was a criminal and I needed to be here for
Right.
Oh, they'd get
Right.
you in that case, Lisa. They'd get you in.
exactly. But there was clearly a recognition on the part of the bailiff and the folks that run things that it was probably less than ideal for me to
Right.
serve. It might be difficult. And so he
Gotcha.
excused me. Yeah.
At least I
Well,
like it.
that's-
Like in
Well, you're breaking up, Rich, a little bit. Your audio has been in and out.
well, okay. Well, Lisa, I like your backdrop. It looks like you look like
I don't even know which one I've got.
Very
IDC.
futuristic.
Oh, it's my work one. I can't even see myself right now. So
So Sean, did you want to follow up with anyone to try to find out about HP parking or?
I don't want to
Oh.
cause a problem. I still feeling kind of new, but I mean, I wouldn't mind, you know,
I mean, I don't think they're exempt from if there's a certain number of parking spaces, there have to be a certain number of HP spaces, right? I mean,
Right.
just because it's a courthouse, it wouldn't be exempt.
it looks like
No.
you're not talking about the one on High Street. You're talking the one near the traffic circle, right?
No,
But there is no parking.
Oh,
There
at the
is-
mall.
Yeah,
at the mall that
there
there's
is no parking there, Sean.
four
So
people
there's,
For
park.
anyone.
4 people park in front of there every day.
yes, I
Yeah.
believe those are staff people.
Oh, okay, all right.
If not people, then I don't know. What happens if a staff member?
No, I don't disagree with you. Yeah, I don't think that they should still be.
If there's
I
parking,
don't
there
think
should
it's
be a handicap
exempt.
spot.
Right.
Yeah. If there's any amount of parking, there should be a handicap spot.
So if there were
yeah,
4,
Sean,
then
feel
it would
free
be
to
1.
go to look into that.
Is that Superior Court or District Court?
That's the
Which is it?
Superior Court.
Okay, so Lisa, you were talking about District Court, right?
I was talking about the one on the mall.
Mhm.
Oh, on the mall. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I thought,
the old
Okay.
guy, yeah.
gotcha.
I didn't
Historic.
realize that there was parking there.
I don't believe that it's for the public. I believe that it's for whatever they are, judges, people that work in the building. I'm not sure. I don't believe it's public parking.
And depending on the day, we drove by today. I think I only saw 2 cars out front. So, but it just, fair is fair.
Right.
That work there can park in comfort every day. What happens when somebody who needs that assistance, or even anybody that's called to Superior Court and they have mobility issues? What do they have to do? Park over at CVS and walk all the way over? It just doesn't seem.
Yeah, if you want to look into that, Sean, I mean, please do. I think that's a worthy thing to find out about. There should be a spot by the handicap door.
Maybe there isn't. I haven't.
I don't think there is one.
Lisa, if
Yeah,
you're
I doubt-
facing
I
the
doubt it.
building from High Street, is the entrance on the left or the right?
The left.
The left. Okay.
I'll go do some walking around, and I am perfectly happy and fine with calling. Should I just call their operator number or whatever, and
Yeah.
member of the commission, and I'm just curious about parking for handicap.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that it is listed as one that is handicapped accessible.
Interesting.
Okay. So
All
yeah,
right.
yeah, Sean, that's
I-
right.
Otherwise I wouldn't have been assigned there.
Right.
I wonder
Okay.
about the restrooms though too that you mentioned, and the sort of overall internal accessibility of the building.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, at the very least, they shouldn't be listed as such if there's so many obstacles.
Barriers,
But
right?
yeah, so Sean, I think that's a great thing to pick up on.
All right. I'll have some
Okay.
in a month.
Sure. All right. Well, it's about 4 minutes of, and if there's nothing else from anyone, I motion to adjourn.
Hold on. It says that the next meeting is 5/14, but that's a Friday, I think.
Oh,
It should be 5/13, I think.
it must mean I must have meant 13.
Typo, right? 5/13.
All right.
Okay, sorry about that.
Good
Why did I
catch.
think it was the 11th. Not the 11th.
May
It is the 13th.
13th is the second Thursday.
Okay, all right. I will make
Actually,
sure that that's.
Andy, are you still with us?
Of course he is. He's running the meeting.
I didn't know if he was busy. The traffic safety advisory committee meetings are posted on the calendar. The other review meeting, and I'm drawing a blank as to what it's called. I'm sorry.
Tech review?
Those are not public meetings. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, those are just the tech review meetings or staff meetings where different departments staff talk to each other about different development projects that we need to look over.
Okay, so we had talked
Happy to-
about potentially, just being available as like a resource for those if possible. So is there a way for us to be included? Jenny, do you get those emails?
I get the emails.
Okay.
But I wonder
on right now.
if it
Sorry,
might,
Andy, what?
She's our designated liaison. We
Perfect.
defer to you on who it should be. We obviously right now, because of Zoom, and even if we were physically in a room, end up showing plans on a screen. So I don't know how that works. What's best, but basically, if we have a representative, it's helpful to have feedback on anything that has to do with accessibility. Just like we're looking for feedback from the fire department about fire hydrants and driveway widths. So
Great.
can we
Okay.
have Kristen, Andy, can you have Kristen included on that email blast? Because I can't ever see the actual plans or anything like that.
Yeah, I
And
will.
so I'm always a little bit in the dark on what's going on anyway.
Sure. Yeah. And Kristen, just keep in mind, this is it'll be a Zoom webinar link.
Perfect.
You get. And that allows you to get into every meeting we have on a monthly basis, the same link every time, so
Okay.
Just keep that handy.
That'd be great. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, great. Then now if there's nothing else, since we're just about at time, I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Get a second? Okay, roll call. Kristen,
Yes. Jenny?
Sean,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Rich,
We didn't hear you, Rich.
We didn't hear.
We can read lips. Rich says yes. Thumbs up.
and I am a yes as well. So thank you all for coming, and I will see you all next month on the 13th. Thank you all.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Well,
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great
Bye-bye.
weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.